I always find it fascinating how cells help every living thing on Earth function throughout their entire lifetime. Do they ever get tired working within the organism?
Well, cells do not always live forever. They have a lifespan of their own, but don't worry. New cells are constantly being made in order to help the organism live.
Amazing! How does that work?
When new cells are born, they must go through a process known as the cell cycle. The cell cycle involves one cell replicating their DNA and other cellular contents in order to divide into two new cells.
So basically every cell has a backstory. A cell Eberty lineage.
Well, that's one way to say it. It's like the life story of a cell. It's born, grows, does its job, and then, when the time's right, it divides.
Right. The cell cycle has two steps that help facilitate cell reproduction: mitosis and cytokinesis. Mitosis is the process where the nucleus is divided into two within one cell, while cytokinesis is the process of dividing the whole cell into two, thus completing the creation of a new cell. In mitosis, there are two parts that a cell must go through in order to complete the process. In the first part, known as interphase, this is where the DNA of a cell grows and gets replicated.
Yes, and within interphase, the process is further divided into three steps. The G1 phase, also known as the first gap phase, involves the cell growing larger, replicating organelles, and preparing the proteins necessary for DNA replication in the nucleus.
So the cell grows, gets energy, and prepares for DNA copying. Got it!
Once the G1 phase is complete, the cell will undergo the S phase, or the synthetic phase. This is where the actual DNA replication begins. Along with the DNA, structures called centrosomes are also duplicated so that they can be used during mitosis to help separate the DNA.
In this stage, everything is doubled.
The third and final step, known as the G2 phase, or the second gap phase, is where the cell grows to its max size and final preparations are made. Some of these preparations include RNA and tubulin being synthesized, the cell making ATP, and the replicated DNA being reviewed by the cell to ensure that all the information from the original DNA is correctly copied over.
Ah, I see. It's like packing your suitcase, checking your passport, and double-checking that you didn't forget your socks before a big trip.
Exactly. Once the cell has gone through all three steps in interphase, it's time for it to go through the next part of mitosis, known as the mitotic phase.
From what I remember, the mitotic phase in mitosis involves 5 more phases before the cell is divided. The cell will have to go through prophase, where chromatin is condensed into chromosomes, which have 2 identical sister strands, known as chromatids, that are bound at a site known as the centromere. In addition, the centrosomes start to form spindle fibers as they begin to move away from each other towards the opposite ends of the cell. Next, in prometaphase, the nuclear envelope dissolves and the spindle fibers bind to those chromosomes. As you can see, the chromosomes start to move towards the center of the cell while they are being lined up by the spindle fibers attached to them. Once the chromosomes line up in the center and the centrosomes are at the opposite ends of the cell has now entered metaphase.
With the chromosomes in a line, they're like models in a cell-fashion runway. Get it? M, like model, and M, like metaphase.
Oh, that's a good way to remember metaphase. Once the chromosomes are lined up, anaphase occurs, and the chromosomes are split off from their centromere, and the sister chromatids are pulled towards the opposite ends of the cell, closer to one of the centromeres. In the final step, known as telophase, the chromosomes from each end of the cell are condensed into a new nuclear envelope where they begin to unravel the DNA. This marks the end of mitosis, and the cell will now enter cytokinesis, also known as the division of the cytoplasm. Through this step in the cell cycle, the cell will finally divide itself to produce 2 identical daughter cells, thus giving us new cells in the organism.
There sure are a lot of steps in the cell cycle, so let's summarize it. The cell cycle involves 2 processes, mitosis and cytokinesis. Mitosis has two phases: interphase, which involves going through the G1 phase, S phase, and G2 phase, and the mitotic phase, which involves going through prophase, prometaphase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Once the nucleus is split into two, the cell is ready to go through cytokinesis and divide itself to give two new daughter cells.
Hooray for new cells! Welcome to the world, little ones.
And let's not forget to thank the little cell security guards who help make sure each step in the cell cycle happens without error. That's everything we have in this lesson. If you need to review what you learned, go to www.scienceaide.com and access our study guide, download the PDF, and learn science smarter.